So, our next topic in the palynology is the pollen structure. As you know already, we have discussed the pollen palynology, the various branches of the palynology in the previous lecture, right? In that various branches, we came to know that how the pollen grain is very, very important and it holds much of the significance during the various kinds of studies. For example, the forensic studies, for example, in the honey studies, right? For example, the for the study of evolution of the plant kingdom, everything relating with the pollen grain we have studied in the last video lecture, right? So in this particular video lecture, we will only focus on the pollen structure, that what is the structure of pollen grain, and then which different kinds of the structure were actually created by the pollen grain in the different species of the angiosperms. So this will become important because the various terms will be used here, which can be asked by the UPSC mains examination, okay, to comment on it, and you should take the note of it, and you should try to write it down every possible point in this particular video lecture. All right, so let us start the palynology, in which we are going to study the pollen structure now. Okay, so we are dealing with the paper 1 and the chapter number 3, that is the phanerogams, in which we have to study the gymnosperms as well as the angiosperms, and we are here at the palynology. Okay, introductory lecture we have seen about the palynology. Now in the second lecture we will discuss the pollen grain. Okay, now consider the introductory points. The most of the pollen grains are globules in shape. Okay, in general, when you see the pollen grain, it will always be seen as a rounded structure. Okay, rounded to oval structure, that is the globule structure. The globe like structure is there for the pollen grain, but this is not the case for the every pollen grain. The if you go through the angiospermic plants, the different kinds of pollen grains can be seen, because the every type of species has their own type of pollen grains, and they were showing the different shapes. For example, the boat shape pollen grains are there, their ellipsoidal pollen grains are there, fusiform pollen grains are there, right? Which are found in the different kinds of the angiosperm. If you consider the types in this diagram, see this is the globose type of the pollen grain, in which it is showing the globe-like structure, right? A rounded circular structure, hence the globose. Then the ovate type of the pollen grains were also there. Then the elliptical pollen grains like this were also found in the angiosperms, and the fusiform type of the pollen grains were also present. So in general, when we generalize the regarding the shape of the pollen grain, we say they were globules largely. Okay, but the ovate type or the elliptical and the fusiform type of the pollen grains are also exist in the different angiosperms. Okay, so this generalization that all the pollen grains are nearly circular, this is not true, but they can vary in their shape, right, from the ovate to the elliptical to the fusiform. Okay, now see, since most of the pollen grains are at least in their early stages form the tetrad. See, whenever there is a microsporogenesis, okay, this is an important process, microsporogenesis, in which the pollen grains is got form. Okay, in the microsporogenesis, microspores are created, which are in general called as the pollen grains. So these under this microsporogenesis process, majority of the time in the early periods, the pollen grains came in a tetrad. Okay, that is in a combination of four. Just like the arrangement is like this, the four pollen grains were stick together, and they are not separate during the earlier stage of the pollen grain development. Okay, so whenever there is a microsporogenesis during the early studies, early stages, they were forming the tetrads. The outer end of the pollen grain is termed as the distal pole. Okay, now understand, here we have the pollen tetrad in this diagram, and this pollen tetrad, its outer end, this end, okay, this outer end is the distal pole. This pole is considered as a distal pole, while whereas the inner end of the grain is a proximal pole. This one is considered as a proximal pole, while the exact at the center you will find there is a polar axis. Okay, this is a polar axis, and here at the center you will find the equator. So in general, when we study the morphology of the tetrad, you will find exactly at the center you will have the proximal end, and at the corners or at the top you will find the distal pole. So proximal pole and the distal pole lies exactly opposite to each other, and the line joining them is considered as a polar axis. Okay, and exactly middle of the polar axis you will find the equator on the pollen grain. So whenever you describe the morphology of the pollen grain or the tetrad, you should use the terms called the distal pole and the proximal pole and the equator or the polar axis, because these are the important structures which are present in the pollen tetrad. Okay, so morphologically, when you consider the pollen tetrad, you will have the distal pole which will be present at the outer end, while at the inner end you will find the proximal end, and the line joining these two poles, it is called as the polar axis. Okay, and exactly at the center of the polar axis you will find the equator. So this kind of the arrangement is actually present in the tetrad of the pollen. Okay, so in this particular slide, you come to know that the pollen grains are of a different shape, and they were having the distal pole, proximal pole, and the polar axis in their structures. Okay, now consider this. See, the line running around the pollen at the right angle to the polar axis is termed as the equator. Okay, this is an equator which is running exactly at the right angle to the polar axis. Okay, this is the polar axis, and it is running a right angle to the polar axis, and this line is called as the equator. So there are actually the four important terms. The first one is the distal pole, second proximal pole, third one is the polar axis, right, and fourth one is the equator, while describing the tetrad of the pollen grain. Okay, see, the pollen aggregation, microsporogenesis, yields the four microspore which matures into the pollen grain. See, during the microsporogenesis, this process of microsporogenesis we have to study in this chapter, or okay, later in this chapter. At the end portion of the syllabus, you will find the process of microsporogenesis, how the pollen grain is got formed under this process. We have to study this in detail. But the one thing is sure here, that the microsporogenesis is producing the microspore. Okay, and this microspore, earlier in the stages, they were forming the tetrad. Okay, how they were forming the tetrad, and this tetrad, okay, this tetrad separates when the pollen grains got mature. For example, earlier there were like the earlier immature pollen grains look like this, the tetrad is there, and after the maturation, the pollen tetrad got separate from one another, and four individual pollen grains got created. Okay, just as you can see in this particular picture here, the immature pollen grain will form a tetrad. Okay, but once the pollen grain got mature, they separate themselves from one another and they liberate independently. Okay, so during microsporogenesis, when the microspores are getting formed, earlier in the developmental stages, they were forming the tetrad, and after forming the tetrad, when the maturity comes, there will be the formation of the four microspores. Okay, that is, the four pollen grains mature from each tetrad, and they will liberate to transfer to the respective female flower, right? See, the large majority of the angiosperms, the pollen grains separate prior to the release. Such a single pollen grains are known as the monads. Okay, the very important term which is called as the monad. Now we have just discussed that earlier during the development, we have found there were the four tetrad form of the four pollen grain, the immature pollen grain. But once they got separated from the one another, they were forming the individual structures. For example, the pollen grains are there. Okay, so these are pollen grains. When they liberate individually. Okay, single pollen grain is liberating, so the individual pollen grains are coming out of the sac, right? So these individual pollen grain were considered as a monads. Okay, the very important term monad. When we use the term monad for the pollen grain, when they are liberating alone, when they are individual during the liberation or dehiscence. Okay, so when they are dehiscence itself alone, these pollen grains are rightly termed as a monads. Okay, you should remember the term monad for the single individual pollen grain. See, in the rare cases, what happens? The pollen grains are released in the fused pairs. That is, the two pollen grains are releasing together like this. Okay, and in such a case, they were known as the dyads. Okay, so this is the second term. The first term being the monads. The second term is the dyad. Now, what happened in the dyad? The two pollen grains which are attached with each other, they were liberating from the pollen sac, right? So here they were coming out in a pairs. So when they came out, when they liberate or when they dehiscence in a pairs, they were called as the dyads. Okay. Now in many angiosperm, the four microspore do not separate at all, and they pollen grain form the tetrad. So they were never separate from the one another, and they release as a tetrad. So four pollen grains are releasing at the same time together with each other. Okay, they were attached to each other. They were not separated, and these are four pollen. They were actually transferring right from the one plant to the another plant. Then in such a case, we use the term tetrad. Okay, so what is the third term for it? It is called as the tetrad. The first is the monad, in which the one pollen grain is liberating. In the dyad, we have the two pollen grains which are liberating from the one another, which are dehiscence during the embryo sac breakage, right? And in the tetrad, the four pollen grains, they do not separate from one another, and they dehiscence from the pollen sac. Okay, so the monad, dyad, and tetrad, these kinds of the pollen grains were actually exist in the angiospermic plants. So, and in the angiospermic plants, when the single individual pollen grain liberate itself, it is called monad. If they liberate in a pairs, they are called as dyads, and if they are liberate in the four numbers, they are called as the tetrad. 5 different types of the tetrads can be differentiated. Okay, so these tetrads were further divided into the 5 different kinds. Okay, so understand the classification here. We are classifying the pollen grains depending upon how they dehiscence. If they dehiscence singly, these are called monads. If in a pairs, dyads. If in a 4, tetrads. And these are tetrads again are of 5 types. Okay, now consider them one by one. See, first is the tetrahedral tetrad. Okay, here in this particular diagram, you will see the tetrahedral tetrad. In this, the four pollen grains form the tetrahedron. Okay, here you will find the tetrahedron formation. Okay, so tetrahedron, if they create the tetrahedron, then in such a case it is called as the tetrahedral tetrad. The four pollen grains compacted in the sphere, while such a pollen grains were found in the family of Ericaceae. Okay, so examples are important. Where to found these pollen grains? The pollen grains were found in the Ericaceae family. So in the tetrahedral tetrad, of course, there were the four pollen grains, and they were actually forming the tetrahedron. Okay, so tetrahedron is because all these are the types of the tetrad. So obviously, every time there will be the four pollen grains. Okay, so these are four pollen grains where if they were forming the tetrahedron, then in such a case we call them as a tetrahedral tetrad. Okay, now consider this second one. It is called as the linear tetrad. Okay, the four pollen grains are arranged in a straight line. Okay, as in seen in the genus Typha. Okay, in the Typha genus you will find this kind of the linear tetrad, and this kind of linear tetrad, it looks like this. See, this is the first pollen grain, this is the second pollen grain, this is the third pollen grain, and this is the fourth pollen grain. Okay, such a type of arrangement is called as the linear tetrad. Because of the four pollen grains presence, it is called tetrad, and the linear arrangement is there, hence it is called as the linear tetrad. Here in this particular tetrahedron, you will find the three pollen grains at the top. Okay, and the fourth one lies behind. Okay, but in the linear, you will find the four pollen grains align in a straight line. Hence in the diagram you can see the four pollen grains, but in the tetrahedral tetron, here you will find the fourth pollen grain, which is present behind the these are three pollen grains. Okay, and that is why it looks like there were the three pollen grains, but actually these are the four pollen grains. Okay, here you will find the in the linear tetrad, you will always find the four pollen grains because they are arranged in a straight line. Okay, how they were arranged? They were arranged in a straight line. That is why we can see them in the naked eyes, right? See, second type is the linear tetrad, in which the four pollen grains were arranged in the linear manner. Okay, so these are four type of the pollen grains. When they arrange in the linear or the straight line, these are found in the genus Typha. The third one is the rhomboidal tetrad. Okay, in which the pollen grains are in a one plane. The pollen grains always line in one plane with the two separated from one another by in a close contact with the other two. That is, the arrangement is like this. The two pollen grains are there, and then second pair is there, and this type of arrangement is called as the rhomboidal tetrad. Okay, so four pollen grains are there, but they are both are in the pairs. Okay, the first pair is there and the second pair is there. So the first pair and the second pair is there, and they were lies in the one plane, and this particular type of the tetrad is called as the rhomboidal type of tetrad. So what happens in the rhomboidal type? Unlike the tetrahedron or the linear type, the two pollen grains are in a pairs and other two are in a pairs, but they are in a close proximity with each other, although they were still separated from the one another. Then such a kind of arrangement is called as the rhomboidal type of tetrad. Okay. See the fourth one, it is called as the tetragonal tetrad, in which the four grains are in a one plane and equally place as in the philodrome. Okay, in the philodrome genus, you will find such a kind of arrangement in which there were the four pollen grains. They were all in a same plane and they were equally spaced. Okay, the equal space lies in between them. The space, if you measure the space between the two pollen grains, you will always find it similar. Okay, so in the in the tetragonal tetrad, you will find the four pollen grains are there. They were arranged in one plane, and the equal space is present between them. Such a kind of tetragonal tetrad is found in the philodrome. Right. See the fifth one, it is called as the desiccate tetrad. Okay, here is the desiccate diagram for the desiccate tetrad. The four pollen grains in a two pairs. Okay, so they were present in the two pairs. For example, this is the first pair and this is the second pair, and they were arranged at a right angle to the one another. Okay, that is the right at the right. They are not lies in a one plane, but the other one is lies at this right angle to the first one. For example, in the Lachinanthus genus, you will find such a kind of pollen grains. Okay, so whether they were lies in the one plane or they were present at the right angle, depending upon this, these last two to three types were got separated from the one another. Okay, so these are all the four types of the these are all the five types of the tetrads, in which the first is tetrahedron, and the second is linear tetrad, third is the rhomboidal, fourth is the tetragonal, and fifth is the desiccate tetrad. Okay, so you should carefully remember these are five types of the tetrad which are found in the pollen grains, right? See, in some genera such as the Cylindra of the Mimosoideae family, the pollen grains are connate in a group of more than four. See, not only four. So actually from the beginning we have classified them as a monad, then the dyad, then the tetrad. Okay, and the meaning of tetrad is that the four pollen grains are grouped together. But what happens in a certain rare cases, as you can see in the Cylindra genus, that there were the more than four pollen grains aggregated together. Then in such a case, these are called as the connate, in which there were more than the four pollen grains. Now, such a pollen grains constitute the polyad. Okay, so final type is called as the polyad type. So the first type monad, second dyad, third is the tetrad, and fourth one is the polyad, in which the tetrad have the five subtypes. So this type of the classification, you should remember it very carefully. You should be able to distinguish between the monad and dyad, dyad and tetrad, tetrad and the polyad. Okay, so what happens in the polyad? In the polyad, more than four. Okay, what is the number? More than four number is there for the pollen grains. Then in such a condition, the polyad connate condition can be found, as you can see in this particular picture. So the aggregation is there, and more than four type of the pollen grains constitute this particular polyad. Okay, now see, this polyad generally consists of the 8 pollen grains. When we consider the structure of the polyad, you will come to know generally there were the 8 pollen grains present in this polyad, and rarely more than 10. Okay, so 8 and more than 10 even sometimes it can be found in such a polyad condition. So if you're defining the polyad, you should remember that not more than 4, but actually 8. And sometimes the 10, more than even 10 pollen grains may be aggregated together. In some members of the family Orchidaceae, for example, genus Piperia, a large number of pollen grains form an irregular group, okay, of which there are more than one group in the theca. These are known as the maculae. Okay, so the fifth one you can add here is the maculae, in which the number is very high of the pollen grain which are grouped together. Okay, so more than one theca is also there. This what is theca? We are going to consider this during the microsporogenesis process. But here you have to remember, if more than polyad, okay, more than 8 pollen grains, more than 10 pollen grains, and from even more than the 10 pollen grains, if they were present together, then in such a condition we use the term maculae. Okay, so there were the condition called the polyad, in which the 8 pollen grains can be there, or the 10 pollen grains can be there, and even more pollen grains can be present in some of the members of the Orchidaceae family. Then in such a condition we explain them as a, or we describe them as a maculae. Okay, so all these terms, maculae, polyads, tetrads, dyads, and the monads, you should have clear cut idea about these pollen grains. Okay, because these are the integral part of the palynological studies, and in the palynological studies these types of the terms were often asked. Okay, so during the MCQ examination, majority of the time these types of the terms where can be seen. Okay, that which kind of plant producing which kind of the pollen grain, right? Now consider this. See, in subfamily of the Asclepidoideae of the family Apocynaceae, and the several members of the Orchidaceae even, all the pollen grains of the theca are fused into the single mass known as the pollinium. Okay, so if you are done with the monad, dyad, tetrad, or the polyad, right, after that even there is a condition which is called as the pollinium. And remember, this term is very important from the examination point of view, because UPSC can ask you to describe the what is pollinium. Okay, so pollinium is the condition in which you will find there where the mass of the pollen grains which are to stick with each other. Okay, consider this is an pollinia of the Calotropis. Okay, Calotropis plant, as you know, Calotropis procera is the example. The pollinia is formed like this. There were the disc, this portion is called disc, and then this neck portion is called as the retinaculum, and this is the pollinium. Okay, and this pollinium, as you can see through the structures, the many pollen grains were stick together to form this particular pollinium. Okay, so this pollinium we stick together to form the mass of the pollen grains. This mass of the pollen grains is termed as the pollinium. Okay, so very important term, pollinium. You should remember it very carefully. And where it found, it is found in the subfamily of the Asclepidoideae. Okay, so and example for this is the Calotropis, and here in the Calotropis you will find there is a mass of pollen grains stick together. Okay, here you don't have to worry about the number of the pollen grain. For example, in the monad we consider there is a one pollen grain. In dyad there were the 2 pollen grain. In tetrad there were the 4 pollen grain. In the polyad there were the more than 4 pollen grain. But in the pollinium, there is no number. Actually, there is a mass of the pollen grain which are attached with each other. Hence, they were forming a particular structure which is called as the pollinium. Okay. So, what is pollinium? Pollinium is the segregation or mass of the pollen grain in the single theca. There is a one theca. This is the theca, and here you will find the mass of the pollen grains aggregated together, and such a structure is called as the pollinium, which is found in the subfamily of the Asclepidoideae. Okay. For example, the pollinia of the Calotropis. Right? Now understand this. See, the pollen grain consist of more than one or more vegetative cells and the reproductive cells. Okay, now we came to the actual structure of the pollen grain. See what happens in the actual structure of the pollen grain. See, this is the pollen grain, and there is a division in this pollen grain. Okay, out of it, one cell is the vegetative cell, and the other cell is called as the reproductive cell or the generative cell. Okay, so reproductive cell and generative cell is the one name, and the other name is the vegetative cell. So once we have the pollen grains, whether it is coming from the monad, dyad, tetrad, or the polyad, or the pollinium, if you consider the single pollen grain, this single pollen grain is made up of the two cells. The very first is the vegetative cell and the second is reproductive or the generative cell. Sometimes more than one vegetative cells were also present. Okay, see, a pollen grain itself not a male gamete. As we already know, this pollen grain itself is not a male gamete. Actually, this reproductive cell later will create the male gametes. Okay, see, in angiosperms and in the certain gymnosperm, the vegetative cells form the pollen tube that grows to meet the unfertilized ovule, and the reproductive cells is the source of the sperms. Okay, so here consider this is an pollen grain, and this is an vegetative cell, and this is an reproductive cell. Now what is the function of this vegetative cell? This vegetative cell will form the pollen tube to reach to the ovule, okay, to reach to the egg, right? So here you can understand through this. See, the pollen grains have landed on the stigma. Now here, see, in this particular diagram, if you observe carefully, there were the two dots. The one dot is the red colored, other dot is the bluish color, right? So one of them is representing the reproductive cell, the other is the vegetative cell. So what is the function of a vegetative cell then? The vegetative cell is considered in this second diagram. The vegetative cell has created the pollen tube till here. See, the pollen tube is created out of the vegetative cell, and the reproductive cell, this second cell, reproductive cell, it divides to form the two cells. These are the two sperms. Okay, and we have discussed this in our previous lectures, that how the double fertilization occurs. Okay, that is the one sperm fuses with the egg, and the other sperm fuses with the two polar nuclei, right? So here, after the formation of a pollen tube through the vegetative cell, this pollen tube will run towards the egg, and the reproductive cell in the meantime will create the two sperms. Now as the two sperms reaches here, the at the say, synergids, here there is a formation of the zygote, because the egg is fertilized with that of the one sperm, and the two polar nuclei are fertilized with that of the other sperm. Hence the three dots were shown here. The one is for the sperm nuclei and other two for the two polar nuclei. Hence the 3N type of condition or triploid condition is created in the primary endosperm cell, and this is the diploid condition in which the zygote is got created. So here, during the studies of the pollen structure, you should carefully remember, if you observe the pollen grain, there were the two cells in the pollen grain, vegetative cell and the reproductive cell. Vegetative cell will form the pollen tube, and the reproductive cell will create the two sperm cells. Okay, what they create? They create the two sperm cells. Later, you know the destiny of these two sperm cells, and what is the function of pollen tube? They carry these two sperm cells to the egg. Okay, so itself, the pollen grain itself is not a male reproductive organ, but the pollen inside the pollen grain there is a reproductive cell, and the reproductive cell is going to create the sperm cell, which act as a male gamete. Okay, now see, the typical pollen grain is actually a non-motile haploid and the unicellular plant body. Okay, so actually this can be considered as a one structure, one cell. Okay, there is only a one cell, but after the division they were forming the two cells, the vegetative cell and the reproductive cell. And if they shared at this level, we called it as a two cell stage. Okay, and sometimes the reproductive cell divide to create the two cells, two sperm cells. So three cell condition can be seen, and at this three cell condition also the pollen grain can liberate itself. Okay, so here you will come to know that the pollen grain is of unicellular nature. The only one single cell is there at the beginning, and it is non-motile in nature. Okay, in the angiosperm, the pollen grain is non-motile. The some biotic or the abiotic agent has to take this particular pollen grain right from the anther to the stigma. Okay, that is, the wind can be used. Okay, water can be used, right, or the honey bees can be used. That is, the abiotic or the biotic factors can be used to transfer the pollen grains right from the anther to the stigma. But one thing is sure, they are non-motile in nature. They cannot move on their own. Okay, with a single nucleus, only a single nucleus is there. It is surrounded by the two layers, layered word, which is called as the sporoderm. Okay, so basically there were the two walls present around the pollen grain, and these two walls together constitute the sporoderm. Okay, What they are constituting? They were constituting the sporoderm. So pollen grain is having the two-celled boundary. Okay, sorry, the two-layer boundary is there for the pollen grain, and these are two layers. The outer one you already know, it is called as the exine, while the inner one is called as the entine. Okay, and together they constitute the wall. This wall can be described as a sporoderm. So how the typical pollen grain is there? The typical pollen grain is non-motile in nature. It is haploid. It is unicellular body with a single nucleus, and they were surrounded by the two-layered wall. This two-layered wall is called as the sporoderm. Now, see, the outer layer is called as exine. It is very thick and it is made up of the complex non-biodegradable substance which is called the sporopollenin. See, this term sporopollenin is a very, very important term because UPSC can ask you the question on this single chemical as well. Okay, so this sporopollenin is present in the exine. Okay, which is an outer layer. See, observe this particular picture. The outer layer, the outer spiny layer can be seen. This outer spiny layer is called as the exine, and it is very thick layer. Okay, so thick layer of pollen grain is called as the exine, which is the outer layer, and it is made up of the complex non-biodegradable substance which is called sporopollenin. Now, the meaning of the non-biodegradable, that it is not going to degrade by anything, not by the physical processes or by the chemical processes. The physical and the chemical process have no impact on this particular chemical substance which is called as the sporopollenin. Okay, so sporopollenin, which is present on the outer wall of the pollen grain, which is called exine, make it very thick. Okay, and resistance to the environmental factor, whether it's a temperature, pressure, all things are there, but these are temperature, pressure cannot be altering this particular pollen grain because of the presence of sporopollenin in its outer layer. See, it may be smooth or with a sculptured pattern characteristic of this species, and it is resistant to the chemical. Okay, so this outer layer can be spiny. Okay, like this, as you can see in this picture, or sometimes it can be seen as a smooth layer like this. Okay, so smooth layer can be there, and this particular layer can be spiny. And if they are spiny, it is a characteristic of the species, because the different kind of species were producing the different kinds of the spines on the outer layers. See, this outer layer exine is spiny in this case, while in the other case you will find the structure like this. Okay, so these types of the spininess is also there. And the other pollen grains were showing the other types of the spininess in their outer wall. So if the spines are present, they were present characteristic to that species. That is, one species is producing their own kind of the exine layer, while the other species is producing their own kind of other exine layer. Okay, so the pollen grains is made up of the two layers. The outer one is called as the exine, which is a thick layer, and it is made up of the complex non-biodegradable substance which is called as the sporopollenin. All right, now consider this. See, at some places, this exine is very thin, showing the area known as the germ pores. Okay, see, here, if you consider at this place is very thick, and it has the lots of sporopollenin deposited here, and that is why this area is quite thick. While this area, okay, some areas you will find there is a no sporopollenin deposition. Then in such a condition, the germ pore is created there. Okay, for example, the pore is creating here, and this germ pore is the pore in which the inner content of the pollen grain will come out. Okay, so germ pore, this is a very important term relating with the pollen structure. This germ pore is nothing but the structure where there is a very thin exine. Okay, if the thin exine is there, this thin exine can easily be ruptured, and the pollen grain content can come out of this germ pore. Okay, this is meant for the growth of the emerging pollen tube. So pollen tube can come out of this germ pore. So the germ pore, this particular structure, where the outer layer is very thin. Okay, how the outer layer is there? Outer layer is very thin, and this thin outer layer can be broken easily, and it will create the pollen tube to release the male content into the egg, right? So what is the function of the germ pore? Germ pore provides the site from where the pollen tube will emerge. Okay, so emergent pollen tube during the germination of the pollen grain. So once the pollen grain germinates, from where it is going to germinate, it is going to germinate from the germ pore. The germ pore will break, and the pollen tube will come out, and this pollen tube will reach to the egg to fertilize the egg. Okay, now see, the inner wall of the pollen grain is called entine, and it consists of the cellulose and the pectin. So it's a thin layer, inner layer, it's a thin layer made up of the cellulose and pectin. For example, the outer layer is made up of the strong material which is called as the sporopollenin. Okay, outer layer is called as the sporopollenin, made up of the sporopollenin, which is called exine, and the inner layer, which is called as the entine, it is made up of the cellulose and the pectin. So inner wall material is quite simple, and hence it is easily breakable. But the outer exine is made up of the complex non-biodegradable chemical material, which is called as the sporopollenin. Okay, so sporopollenin is there, and this sporopollenin making the this particular pollen grain very resistant to the environmental factors. Okay, now see, this sporopollenin is one of the most chemically inert biological polymers. Okay, as we have discussed already, this is very inert material. Whatever the sporopollenin which is present in the outer walls of the pollen grain, it is an inert material and it does not degrade easily. Okay, it is a highly cross-linked polymer composed of the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen that extraordinarily stable. Okay, it is made up of the different elements like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and it is extraordinarily stable. See, which term they were using? They were using the term extraordinarily stable. That is, it is a very stable compound and it cannot be easily break by using the chemical reaction or the physical reaction. It has been found chemically intact in the sedimentary rocks and the plant spores. Okay, so this sporopollenin, it is not unique to the plant spores only, but it is also found in the rocks as well. So these particular sporopollenin chemical compound which is present in these plant spores. These plant spores are the spores which are having the sporopollenin deposited in their outer wall, which is called exine, and which is made up of the carbon, hydrogen, and the oxygen, and that is why it is very extraordinarily stable. Okay, now it can withstand a very high temperature, strong acid, and the alkali. See, the effect of high temperature, strong acid, and strong alkali is not there on the sporopollenin. For example, if you give the treatment to the pollen grains of the high temperature or the strong acid or the alkali, it will have no impact on the outer wall of the pollen grain, that is the exine. Also, no enzymes can degrade the sporopollenin is so far known. That is, there is no enzyme in this world which can break the sporopollenin. So, as you can understand, why these particular pollen grains got fossilized over a period of time, because these are pollen grains were having the strong layer, strong outer layer. Okay, this strong outer layer is called as the exine, and this exine, why it is strong? Because of the presence of a strong chemical compound which is called as the sporopollenin, which is extraordinarily stable, and high temperature, strong acid, strong alkali, or no enzymes can degrade this particular exine layer. Okay, now consider this. See, the pollen grains exine has a prominent aperture which is called germ pore, right? We have discussed it, where the sporopollenin is absent. Here, at the germ pore, wherever there is a germ pore on the pollen outer layer of the exine in the pollen, you will find there is absence of the sporopollenin, and that is why it is break during the germination of the pollen grain. So during the germination of the pollen grain, there is a formation of the pollen tube which is coming out of the germ pore. Okay, so pollen grains are well preserved as a fossils because of the presence of the sporopollenin. So as we have rightfully discussed that these are sporopollenin, why they were got fossilized successfully? Because of the presence of the sporopollenin. The exine exhibit the fascinating array of pattern and design. As we have discussed the different plants of the angiosperm, we are producing the different pattern and different designs of this exine. Okay, and that is why they were quite unique to that species only, right? Consider this. See, the pollen is produced in such a large quantities that its significant component is airborne and constitutes of the Earth's atmosphere. As we have discussed in the last video lecture, that large quantities of the pollen grains were actually produced, and this large quantity of pollen grain constitute which are present in the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so as you can see, how the pollen grains are shared in the lakhs of the quantities, and these quantity were present in the Earth's atmosphere. The proteinaceous substance which is present in these pollen grains causes the allergic reactions commonly called as the hay fever. As we have discussed this as well in the last video lecture, that these pollen grains are responsible for giving the allergic reactions, and the most common type of the fever caused by these allergic reactions is the hay fever, and the proteinaceous substance which is present in these pollen grains actually responsible for this hay fever. Okay, now see, frequently the local governmental authorities publish the pollen count estimate of the concentration of the pollen grains in the air. Okay, whatever the concentration of pollen grain is there in the air, it is regularly published by the governmental authorities. Okay, for this purpose of indicating the relative discomfort that may be experienced suffers from the hay fever similar allergies. Okay, so that people will come to know that the large quantity of pollen grain is there in the surrounding, and they should not come out if they have allergies to the pollen grains. Okay, so if they were feeling the discomfort, the local authorities were going to produce the pollen count. What is the pollen count in the the air, and if the more pollen count is there in the air, the people should not came out which has the some allergic condition regarding that particular pollen grain in the air. Okay, because it may cause the allergies. All right. So this is all about this topic. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like this video, share this video with your friends who are studying the botany, and if you haven't subscribed to the Botany Optional channel yet, please subscribe to the Botany Optional channel for UPSC examination. Again, thank you very much for giving your time. See you in the next video lecture. Thank you.